today we are coming back, and now I get to let Annie take over because she's the one that really kind of like she has I fell in love with Annie's vision. She's a big thinker. She's a global thinker. And so I'm so grateful that she's gotten me out of my own way and out of my smallness. And literally in the last 6 months, we have expanded and rippled out in a bigger way than ever before. So thank you, Annie. And
Thank you for having me and for trusting me. And I know sometimes change isn't always, sometimes expansion and growth is challenging. And so to be able to step into that and say, I'm going to do it, is also something that deserves recognition. So thank you. And I hope you guys, if you haven't already checked into Frequency School and gotten registered for that, that you will. And that is really the prerequisite for Love Solve Academy, as you heard. So we will be talking more about that tomorrow, as I'll be coming and speaking about raising your frequency to change your life. You'll be able to hear all about that tomorrow. So today, however, we're going to talk with someone who has had an impact in my life. And so I want to really briefly introduce you to Samuel Knickerbocker. He is actually a legacy expert and motivational speaker. And so I love that because I used to be in fundraising for a long time. And I have a long history in nonprofit leadership. And so leaving a legacy has always been part of my conversation. But Samuel does it in a different way. And I probably could have used him 20 years ago. I don't know where you were, Samuel, but he focuses on teaching individuals how to leave a legacy rooted in love, forgiveness, gratitude, and self-confidence. He definitely has had his own transformational journey and has shifted his leadership style to engage with others more effectively and compassionately. And so he does that in his own unique way. And I really have grown to appreciate Samuel's approach. And so anyway, thank you for being here. He's recognized in his engaging presentations where he communicates complex ideas, and this is really great, in an accessible manner, making his message resonate with a wide audience. Samuel was born in Utah and raised in Parma, Idaho, which if anybody knows where that is, I think you have a special prize for them today. But both of his upbringing areas have influenced his perspectives and teachings. In addition, he is also the host of Fuel Your Legacy podcast. So if you're interested in a new podcast, and he's involved in various initiatives and aimed at helping people understand the importance of legacy in their lives. So Samuel, welcome to the stage. Thank you for closing us out today and for just all that you do in the world. So please help me welcome Samuel.
Awesome. Can you guys hear me okay? Everything's good? Want to make sure that the sound is good for everybody. Awesome. Thank you so much, Annie, for providing this opportunity. And Chris, got to make sure I say your name right, Christine, and all the other people who have participated, spoke, and also who have helped put this on and get people to it. It's a big undertaking, and I'm glad to be part of something so wonderful. Every person who gets to speak today is has their own value, and the reality is probably everybody even watching has your own value, and that's a big part of why I love this whole process of legacy and living a life the way that you want to be remembered. So that's one of my little taglines, is not just to try and leave a legacy, although that's an important aspect, but ultimately you're going to leave the legacy that you choose to live. And so it's more important to start living the way you want to be remembered. I think you're worth being remembered. I think every one of us has a specific special gift that was given to each of us, and we get the opportunity to share that with the world. Now, a lot of people are too scared, or they just don't know how to fully get out of their own way to do so. And that's what I love so much about the whole event over the 4 days. Breaking down every little aspect, whether it's the neuroscience behind it, whether it's the energy side, the health side. There's all these different things that impact our bodies and impact the way our brain functions. And the sooner we can learn the things that are essential for us to be able to move the needle in our life, the better. And that's what's so great about the entirety of this summit is that if you go through the 4 days, whether you're able to make that all right now or you're able to come back and make that and rewatch some of these, it's going to be an investment in you and for your future. Everybody here that I know of at least was volunteered and loves to serve and loves to share this information, and that's definitely my case as well. When Annie offered the opportunity to share this with you, I was like, absolutely. If I can help one person change their life and see their world through more rose-colored glasses rather than dark Drake glasses, then that's for me. I'm all into that activity. How do I help people do that? So I do want to start off. I can share my screen. Hopefully, I want to just start off with a little bit about me and my upbringing to add context to where my perspective came from and why I think that it has the power to transform your own belief system around specifically the legacy from a perspective of living the life. Now, when I ask people, first thing, if you go to my website, samknickerbocker.com, there's 2 questions that are asked right at the top. And I don't remember exactly the order or word for word what it says, but essentially, what would you do, if nothing else mattered? What would you choose to be doing with your life if there was no financial thing holding you back? And then the question is, why are you not living that life? So what would you do if you got to just do your heart's desire? And then why are you not currently doing that? And a lot of people, when they answer that question, it comes down to they either don't have the time or the resources, and another word for resources is money, to make that dream come true, to live that life. So they're going to work, they're doing these things, income producing activities, not in something they're passionate about, not in something that fulfills them, definitely not how they want to be remembered, but they're doing it because they feel like they need to survive. And then if you ask them what they're passionate about, they tell you this other thing that's way out of left field. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I think we all do it to a degree. However, if you're able to have a life of meaning and live a life of meaning and build a life of meaning and have income come from that and figure out the money game, then it frees you up to do a lot more of the things that you actually love to do. And so with that being the context, I want to share a little bit of my story before we dive into some of the concepts I'm going to draw out on the whiteboard here. But as you guys already got introduced, my name's Sam Knickerbocker. I wrote a journal a while back about how to identify your identity. This is one of the hardest parts that a lot of people struggle with, is identifying who am I? What are the experiences that created who I am? And why are my desires currently so important to me? What in my childhood developed those experiences, and why are they so important? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. How do we help you identify your identity? And what's the value in doing the work? Because it is work. It's not, nothing anybody on this summit has talked about is just like, oh yeah, you just change your perspective and life just magically is better. No, it takes work to change the way you be. And if you want to be somebody new, you have to actually do the actions that support that new way of being. And that's work, because it's different than you're already being. If you are already happy the way you're being, then just stay how you are, right? But my guess is that most of you didn't get on this summit to just stay the way you were. Maybe, but most of it, I bet not. So I want to first introduce my family. This is Charlie, my beautiful wife. She's my everything, okay? And then I have 2 sons, and they are secondary, okay? I love my sons, but they are secondary to my wife, absolutely. I never plan on disrupting that cycle. It's me first, then my wife, and then my kids. I say that, but sometimes you need just another woman in your life sometimes. So I also have a little baby girl, and she's like, don't tell my wife this, but she's right up there actually with my wife. She doesn't like the competition, but Paige is everything. I love everything about her. Even when she's upset and whining like my sons get, I'm much more patient with my daughter than I am with my sons. And so anyways, but I love them, and everything I do in my life is built around my family time. So think about, again, ask yourself this question: how do I want to be remembered? What am I doing on a daily basis to support how I want to be remembered? If somebody were to introduce you, would they introduce you based off of how you want to be remembered? Or would they introduce you based off of their experience of you? What if their experience of you is not how you want to be remembered? Who can take accountability for that? Not fault or blame or guilt. Those energies aren't going to support us. but who can take accountability? Who could create a new version of themselves in the mind's eye of somebody else? And each of us get the opportunity to create how we are interpreted and how we're perceived. And so for me, I love my family. That's absolutely number one. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to schedule my life, my legacy, the way I live my life around my family interactions. Now, I didn't always, I'm the seventh of 11 kids. I've got a few of my family members on the call today. I'm grateful for them. But growing up, this is a house that we moved into. This is what it looked like pretty much a few months after I was born. And it looks great. I mean, it looks like everybody's dream house, probably right there in Grantsville, Utah on Main Street. And I'm the seventh, so there's a lot of kids that moved into this house. But notice it's very unfinished. And maybe you feel that way about your own life, that there's elements of your life that are unfinished. They just need some work. Now, a lot of times we move into things and we are willing to do some work on physical things, but we ignore the work on our spiritual things, on our inner work. We ignore the mindset work. We say, oh, well, I can do something that's outwardly visual of accomplishment. And we forget to do the inside work that's necessary to support that accomplishment. So you might look at this house and say, well, it's in need of repair. This house actually was condemned before we bought it because the foundation of this house was only laid for a single story foundation. And so the city, when whoever had it before us decided to try and build a second story on top, the city came in and said, hey, whoa. Your foundation isn't built for that. Okay, how many of your guys' foundation isn't built for the life that you're trying to build? And that's a big, big question. We've got to get into the inner work, the inner foundation of our souls to identify, are we really prepared to launch into that next stratosphere? And there's tons of people who've already spoken and will speak over the next few days. They're absolutely qualified, probably more than qualified, to help you dig into, identify, and improve that foundation, okay? In all different areas of your life, whether it's health, spiritual, sexuality, all these different areas, they can help you. Take advantage of that help and take advantage of the resources they're sharing. But for me, this was the issue, right? There was this foundational issue where we had to dig apart, our family had to dig out each section of that foundation all the way around our house and refortify it so that we could finish that second story. Sometimes we have to take a pause. Sometimes we think we're in the middle of the building process and we need to actually not slink back into our darkness, but refocus into the areas of the foundation to refortify those so that we can continue to build up in the life and the dream life that we want. Yes, that's me on the toilet. And my wife still says I take a while, probably too long on the toilet. Anyways, but habits I heart. But what's important is this is me maybe 3-4 years old. You can see that there wasn't a lot of change over a 4-year period. It got to be livable, but maybe not your dream house. And sometimes people do that. They give up on pursuing excellence because their lifestyle becomes livable rather than their dream life. And that's another great question to ask yourself. Am I living the life of my dreams, or am I just plateauing in a livable existence because either I'm tired, I'm worn out, I don't feel like I have the support that I need, I'm not energized enough, I can't describe my future vision with enough detail or as much detail as I'm describing my past or my present. And so I'm stuck just reliving the past because I failed or haven't chose to create a better vision of the future. And so a lot of people, they end up just living over and over and over the same few years of their life rather than actually changing because they never put in the work to build the foundation, get some blueprint plans out, and actually create a vision of a beautiful future for themselves. So I used to tell people that we weren't allowed to watch or read Harry Potter or any of these things growing up. But I still wanted to be cool. I was homeschooled. I wanted to fit in with people. Maybe you felt the same, that you wanted to fit in, but your ideas are a little bit off, but you still want to fit in. You still want to have friends. You still want to have connection. And you're really not sure where to get that from. Well, that's how I felt. And so I would tell my friends that I used to have a bedroom underneath the stairs. And they say, oh, like Harry Potter. Now, I've never watched Harry Potter, but I was like, sure, if that's cool, that's trendy, just like Harry Potter. And then when I was about 18 years old, I finally watched Harry Potter. And my perspective changed wildly, right? As I was watching Harry Potter, I was thinking, man, Harry Potter was rich. He had a door, he had a bed, he had a light, he had dressers, he had a lock on his door. And some people were like, that was what caged him in. But at least he had some privacy. On the other hand, our family had 4 or 5 of us sleeping underneath the stairs in this very uncertain environment. And I promise you, all of this is building into what we're going to talk about. How do we deal with the energy around wealth? How do we deal with the energy of financial literacy? And how do we deal with the energy of building a legacy with intention and actually feeling that healing power of confidence, knowing where we're going, getting clarity and control of our financial future? So many of you are maybe you're practitioners and you have clients who struggle with these emotions around money. And many of you may just be struggling with it yourself. I love to help anybody and talk to anybody. I just think it's the most important thing and powerful thing to have these conversations. And it's super fulfilling, whether I'm doing it out of charity or service or free, whatever it looks like. I just love serving people and love having those conversations. Annie mentioned my podcast. This is where you can listen to it. The most recent episode is a great episode. He's a comedian. Probably a lot of you guys could go actually help him. He had kidney disease and he chose to forego. He was on the kidney list to get a new kidney, and right as he was discovering comedy, he finally books this gig where he could go meet some of his idols, some of the people that he'd been dreaming of meeting in comedy, or he could go and get his kidney replaced. So again, life-saving. You've been on dialysis for years. What choice does he make? Well, he chooses to go meet his passion, go fulfill his passion, go fulfill his dreams over the kidney with confidence that another kidney will come. Okay? How many of you would choose to follow your heart, to follow your dream, to follow your passion over this life-saving kidney? Think about that. Like, how committed to you are you to your legacy that you would make that choice over the alternative of health, over the alternative kidney? Now, we eventually got a kidney, and it's absolutely worth listening to the whole episode to find out kind of how that transpired and what happened. But just think about, what type of passion do you need to have for your dream, for the future that you want, for the dreams that you're pursuing, for you to actually put into practice that type of commitment over some of these other areas. Now, I'm not saying, don't take this the wrong way. Don't say, Sam told me to overlook my health for success or for my dreams. I'm not saying that, okay? Like, I responded the same way you did. Why would you do that, okay? It's a kidney. But because he was so dreamed, and it gives me inspiration of like, how many things am I putting off that I could be doing more of simply because I'm choosing the safer route rather than actually chasing my dreams? How many excuses am I making thinking, oh, I need safety and security right now, rather than chasing my dreams? Because a lot of the chasing in your dreams builds the safety and security. He's now a traveling comic that speaks on behalf of kidney foundations all over the world. So he became kind of the poster child for what he wanted to do, and he gets to do his passion. So he gets to do comedy, and he got a great kidney and support the industry. So just think about, for you, and it's going to be different for everybody, but what does that look like? What would passion look like for you? So if you're interested, you've got the link there. You can do that. And I think they're going to put links in here as well to get access to that. And then you can also go to my website, samknickerbocker.com. And that would also get you access to the podcast and give you a download of the Fuel Your Legacy 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy book. So with that kind of as a backdrop, I'm about to dive right in. I got to make sure I stay on time here. So there's a few things that I want to talk about. Really, primarily 3 things that I'm going to talk about today. One is neurologically, how do we experience trauma, and how does that disrupt our ability to win and on a high level in the financial world? Okay, there's lots of different definitions of winning. There's lots of different definitions of success. I'm here to talk about what I'm an expert in. Everybody else is going to talk about what they're an expert in, and I'm grateful for that I don't have to talk about everything. But what types of traumas affect us, and how does our brain work, and why does it work that way? So that's the first thing I'm going to talk about. And then we're going to talk a little bit about incentive structures and how do these incentive structures benefit us or hurt us. And again, this is a workshop for me. I hope you guys have your pens and papers and you're not just listening, taking notes, but I hope you're working through some of these things for yourself. My goal is to leave about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes at the end for question and answer. So if you have any questions, write them down. I want to leave some time for you guys to get those answered. And then lastly is, how do we emotionally experience, and I'm going to put in quotes here because by the end of this conversation, you'll understand why I'm doing this, but debt. Okay. I'm really going to hope you can break through this belief and energy frequency that you've been experiencing around debt. Okay. So that's where we're going. But first, let's actually talk about how does our brain function and why does it function that way? So a lot of times when I bring up the financial conversation with people as it relates to living the life that they want, a lot of people experience anxiety, they experience fear, they experience lack, they experience suffering, simply because I brought up money, let alone actually digging through your finances and finding out where your money's going. Now, my role, I believe, is to help you get through that process of discovery with zero shame and guilt, right? When you start to experience or start trying to self-harm your emotional self, or your soul, it's my job as a professional to stop you from committing self-harm. Okay. And so that's my role. I'm just a guide. I'm not really forcing anybody into anything, but that's my objective, is to help you recognize the elements that you're doing to yourself that keep pushing your soul down. But to understand that, we have to understand how our brain works and why it works that way. So if you guys, I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen here. Here we go. Now, if you can, either virtually raise your hand or physically, I've got you up here so I can see you. You're more than welcome to get off camera. I love interacting with people face to face. But how many of you guys have watched the movie A Bug's Life? Like the Disney movie. Okay, we've got a few people who have seen the movie A Bug's Life. I think Disney is a fascinating industry or company. They tend to do a lot of sneaky things. And I don't mean negative sneaky things. I mean, like, they have some incredible people working there that must understand human psychology and how humans work, or they're so oblivious to it and they just put it in the movies anyways. I don't know which one it is, but there's two scenes that start out in the Bug's Life movie. The first scene is the old gentleman playing chess with himself, going back and forth, back and forth. You don't really know he's playing with himself until right at the end. Well, think about that in your own life. How often are you playing chess with yourself? How often are you trying to outsmart your soul? Your conscious thought is trying to outsmart your inner soul. You know there's problems. You know there's things you need to work on. You know the foundation's not good enough, and you're trying to out-chess or outplay. Your conscious is trying to outplay your subconscious, thinking that eventually you're going to beat it. Okay? It's a fool's errand, right? You can't beat your own psychology. You've got to put the work in to actually change it. So then the next scene, right after that, is these ants are walking in a line. Who remembers this scene? What falls down in this scene and disrupts this ant line? Okay, it is a leaf. This leaf falls down. Now, I didn't understand this until I actually sold pest control. I sold it for 5 years, door to door. Loved the activity. Glad I don't do it anymore, but I still love pest control. So ants, we have eyes and we move with our eyes. They know where to go based off of their antennas. Their antennas, they poke out and they follow a scent, a pheromone scent, and the lead ant lays down the pheromone scent. Okay. And so they're constantly just course correcting, making sure that pheromone scent stays between their two antennas. Well, when something covers that scent up, there's confusion, there's mass confusion. Okay. Well, our brains are really no different. Our brains have a pathway. And when we experience a disruption in our energy frequency, okay, a blip in our energy frequency, this is what we call trauma. We have this trauma happen in our life that disrupts our energy field. It disrupts our energy frequency. This is why the conversation of the auras right before this, that's an important conversation. This is why energy working is so important. Energy healing, energy testing, all these things are so valuable because they help us realign our energy frequencies. Well, this trauma happens. So you have this line that's of ants that's going here. Hopefully you can see that. And then this leaf falls in the way of the line. And people don't know, these ants are like freaking out. They don't know what to do. And what happens? An older, wiser ant comes, and keep in mind, all of these ants, they have massive loads, massive heavy things in their life that they're being able to lift, maneuver, carry, all these things. And They could have all just banded together, lifted up the leaf, moved it out of the way, and kept on their merry way. But instead, the older, wiser ant, I'm putting wiser in these quotation marks as well, says, hey, let's just go around the leaf. Okay, so your life is essentially a collection of from 0 to 8 years old. I think it's probably 0 to 4, but we'll give it 8 years old. 0 to 8 years old is when your mind is actually creating the identity around who it is. Thus, identify your identity. So your identity is pretty much formed by the time you're 8 years old. And by the time you're 8 years old, you've just had a bunch of these traumatic experiences. They may have been small in comparison, but to a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 6-year-old, they were massive leaves in your life that disrupted your energy frequency. And what happens is you have this energy frequency that's disrupted, and your brain's job, mammalian, crocodile brain, its only for function, or its primary function, is to protect you from harm. So when you experience pain, your brain says, let's go around the leaf. Let's go around the pain. Let's not solve the pain. Let's not address the pain. Let's not inspect the pain and find out why it happened. Let's just go around it. It's easier. And so most of your life is a collection of avoiding a few seconds of pain. That's it. Your life is spent avoiding a few traumas. And so most of us are zombies, for lack of a better word, like we're subconscious beings avoiding subconscious trauma that we don't know what's going on. And some of these traumas, this is going to get really deep a little bit. Some of these traumas aren't ours. Some of these traumas are our parents or their parents or their parents. These could be 7 generations back. This could have come from the 500 AD, whatever, because our DNA, all our DNA is, if we're getting into a super scientific conversation here, okay, every part of our body is just energy. It's a nucleus with a proton, neutron spinning around it. And your DNA strand, that's all it is. It's a proton, neutron spinning around this nucleus. And it creates into this double helix, and that matches up, and then we end up with another human. But it's just replicating itself. And so as it's replicating itself, it's replicating trauma from our previous generations. So then we're living in avoidance of traumas that we didn't even, they're not our traumas. They're somebody else's trauma. Now, the cool thing is you get the ability, the option, the opportunity to heal traumas, not just for you, but for future generations. And for me, that's a wonderful gift. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Why is that important when it comes to the conversation of death? Because historically, we didn't, as humans, exist in a world of abundance. We existed in a world of scarcity. We existed in a world where we had to hunt and struggle and strive and fear of being eaten. And it was hard to survive. And so we're living in this world where genetically we've been programmed to experience this way. And if we don't inspect our traumas and take the time to go back into our life and understand our energy, then it's going to be really hard to attract wealth, because wealth or money is an energy as well. It's just a proton and a neutron spinning.
This is Sam Knickerbocker.
Change that.
Sam speaks alone.
How do we take
lunch with all those people?
Put you on mute.
Oh,
there we go. Okay. Sorry. So this is a huge pathway for us to overcome our own traumas that we have experienced and the past, but we've got to be willing to put in the work to identify what those are. And that's where I have really helped people. Annie can personally testify to that. It wasn't an overnight thing. When I started talking to her, I was like, okay, this is where she's at. This is where she wants to be. Rather than just like trying to get her from point A to point B right away, we took the time to uncover and kind of work through a lot of these beliefs and things that have happened and identify what those are and why those are. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go through the next segment here. Again, if you have questions about this, just write them down. We'll catch them at the end here. But how do I share this? So this is what I consider the incentive quadrant right here. Okay. So on the left-hand side here, we have the incentive quadrant. And maybe you've seen something similar to this, but this is whether you're acting out of motivation or inspiration. Again, these are things to just think about and let wash over your soul and experience. Is this me? If it's true for you, let's help you. If it's not true for you, disregard it, move on, right? There's no need to worry about it that it's not true for you. But in this bottom right quadrant, we have extrinsic motivation. This is fear of punishment, fear of consequence, fear of shame, guilt, other people thinking something about you, you losing your job, you losing your house, you're losing something. This is fear of consequence, energy. And you have to understand, am I living in that energy? How often do I live in that energy? Am I making decisions in my financial life based off of my fear of consequence? So that's like what I consider the lowest vibration to make a decision in absolute fear of consequence. Okay. The next step up from that would actually be intrinsic motivation. So this is, I'm no longer scared of an outward consequence, but I'm scared of missing out on something. Now this is FOMO. This is, I'm now scared of, if I don't do this, then I might not be able to eat. If I don't do this, then my kids can't play sports. If I don't do this, then I might not be able to wear the dress I want. So I'm going to lose a bunch of weight so that I can look the way I want, because if I don't, then I won't fit into mold or whatever. Okay, so these are, I'm acting, I'm now proactively, I'm intrinsically doing something. It's not extrinsic, but it's still out of a motivated, fear-based energy. It's no longer a loving energy. I'm doing it because I'm scared of missing out on something. We've got to ask for me, I love to ask myself, am I doing this action, whether it's with my family, my faith, my fitness, my finances, my fun, whatever it is I choose to do, am I doing it? Am I acting out of a fear-based energy? If so, am I scared of consequence, or am I scared of missing out on something? And these questions, they resonate with me. Hopefully they resonate with you, but this is what has transformed my ability to see the world through different eyes, to have more compassion for myself when I understand which energy I'm operating in. The bottom one is really what I would consider this call, or this whole event is an extrinsic inspiration event. Okay. So an extrinsic inspiration event is where you put yourself into an environment where people can pour life into you, where they can extrinsically inspire you to do something, where you can catch an inspiration, catch a flame, catch some spirit into your dream or into your process. And so you're in an environment of extrinsic inspiration. The benefit to extrinsic inspiration is maybe you have a little spark and you just need to be around somebody else with a little spark and it can turn into a bigger flame. Maybe you're just not sparked at all and somebody else's flame, an ember, flies out and lights your soul on fire, right? Maybe that's what happens. So this is a benefit of these types of online summits, in-person events, extrinsic inspiration type experiences. The downside to extrinsic inspiration experiences is they don't last very long, right? This is 4 days long. My portion of this is only 45 minutes long. It's not really a very long time span. And so that creates a little bit of scarcity in that, how can I survive and keep going to these extrinsic inspirations? The goal of an extrinsic inspiration event or experience is to actually shift you into an intrinsic inspiration position, where you're now intrinsically inspired to take action. You're intrinsically inspired to to move towards your objective and to create something that you want. And so when we understand this, when we're going through when I go through with a client, I'm going through all of how they're spending their money. How are they using their money? Their value, okay? Another word for money is value, right? A lot of times people say, well, I don't have enough money for that. That's essentially saying, I don't have enough value for that. I don't possess enough value in my soul for that, which is just patently not true. But that's okay. If that's where you're at, I love you and I care about you, and I want you to see that you're more valuable than any dollar number that a credit card company or bank or somebody else wants to put on you. That's not necessary. You are valuable. But if you don't believe it, it doesn't really matter. Okay. And so this is where we're going to transition from this, and we're going to go to the last segment here, and we're going to talk about debt. And we'll be done here in about 5 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. So, again, you guys can put in the chat, type in the chat, or you can, probably that's the best way, just type in the chat. But when you guys hear the word debt, okay, how does that make you feel? What type of experiences show up in your life when you hear the word debt? What energy shows up? Where do you feel it? Is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your head? Where do you feel the word debt? Okay. And this is I believe, a crucial question to ask ourselves. Because once we understand what debt is, it really can be liberating. This is kind of a funny question, okay? A heart attack, brain pain. And I feel you. I know lots of people have felt that way. I want to help you here. So pay special attention to this. Have you ever heard of a debt card? Okay, they don't have debt cards. Okay, they have loans, but debt actually is not like, if we're talking just practically how money works, debt is not a thing. Financially, every loan is based on value. And the American dollar is based on the production, the oil that we have, our ability to transact around the world in oil. And then secondly, it's based on the ability of the US government to tax its populace. Okay, that's where the US dollar derives its value from, primarily. Okay, well, when somebody is offering that to you, they're essentially offering you credit because they believe that you're worth it and they believe that you're going to pay it back. Okay, so the entity up here, when they offer you money, let's say $1,000, they offer you this $1,000, and you go use this $1,000 to, I'm going to say personal development. Okay, maybe you use it for something else, but let's say you used it for personal development. The question is, are you in debt to this company, or are you in credit to that company? And from their perspective, you are in credit to them. And the reason you're in credit, the reason they've given you credit, just like Annie gave me credit when she introduced me for some of the transformation in her life, she offered a portion of her credibility, her reputation, and said, hey, I'm offering some of that credit to Sam. Now, do I feel like I'm in debt to Annie? Absolutely not. I'm grateful for her extension of credit to me, but I'm not in debt to her. The only reason that I might be in debt is if I decide that I'm not worth returning the value back to where it came. So debt is really a conversation of, do you believe you are worth it? Because by nature of them extending you the credit, they believe you're worth it. The only question is, do you believe you're worth it? And the moment you can start to believe you're worth it, now that doesn't mean, keep in mind, some people will be like, okay, well, then why care about it? Let's just go into lots of debt. That's not at all what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying go spend up the wazoo because I believe I'm worth $1 million, so I'm just going to go spend somebody else's $1 million. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you believe that debt is an extension of credit, then it changes the experience of somebody offering you credit from fear and, oh my gosh, I have to pay this interest rate that I committed to a position of gratitude. Now I can say, wow, I'm so grateful that Annie gave me this experience that I wouldn't have had without Annie. So now I'm grateful for her, and I'm hoping that the value that I can provide can add value back to Annie, back to Christine, back to this whole summit with more value than she extended to me. And some people call that interest. Okay? But for me, I'm grateful when people extend me their credit. I'm curious how you feel when people extend you credit, you use that credit. Are you grateful enough to pay them back plus interest? Are you grateful enough for their ability to offer you an experience before you would have been able to have that experience, mind you? Because if you didn't, if nobody offered you credit, then you wouldn't have been able to have that experience as soon as you had it. So they gave you an experience sooner than you would have had it, in the anticipation that you're going to honor your experience and you're going to return that experience with a little bit of interest. I'm going to pause there and we'll open it up for questions. You can either type your questions in the chat and I'll kind of watch them here, or you can unmute yourself and raise your hand so we know who to tell to unmute. That way we have some sort of order here.
I want to pop in with where you feel the debt. I'm intrigued by that. So I felt it lower, like in my legs and feet. We had someone that felt heart, brain pain, stomach, back pain, maybe a generational connection, all kinds of stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, all of that, and on top of that, from a generational perspective, that's where you can go do your energy work and find out why that's there. But also, where you feel it is probably where you're resistant to move and take the next risk. So if you're feeling it in your feet, you're probably choosing not to take action. If you're feeling it in your heart, you're probably choosing not to trust somebody that could help you grow. So where you're feeling the pain is probably the element of your body that needs to do something that is not doing it.
What about shoulders?
Shoulders, maybe that's just you're feeling the weight, and that weight is not your weight. Or I had this conversation with a client of mine. This is my image that I think of. I think of the Asian cultures that you see these pictures where they're carrying these massive bags of stuff on their back. Like, just, I don't know how they balance it. I don't know how they manage it. And imagine that they're walking through this rice field in a line, trudging through, because after 1,000 people walk through the same line of mud, it's just hard, right? Your every foot sinking down 2 feet and you're trying to make it through. And there's a whole prairie of grassland that you could just like put down the weight for a second, climb out of the mud, and then pick up the weight back again and walk, and be way easier to get through it. But instead, you're so focused on the mud right between your legs and the next step that you are unwilling to unburden yourself for just a second. Work with a professional, somebody like myself who can help you just remove the weight for a second, take the weight off of you, allow you to see the green grass, allow you to smell the roses, what it could be like if you just unburdened yourself for a second and step to the side of where you're going. And then pick up the weight again. The weight doesn't disappear. If you've gotten yourself into a situation where you don't energetically feel worthy, it's not just going to change overnight. I wish, man, I really, really wish that this was overnight change. Most of my clients, it's not overnight change. Most of my clients, it takes a while for them to get the belief back inside of their soul that they have more, that they're willing to do more. So great insight there, Christine. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts that they want to share?
Emily was just saying that maybe the brain pain speaks to allowing self to believe or think differently about finance, as a question. Does brain pain help? Is it connected with the way that we perceive or think about finance?
It could. I think a lot of times at least my experience, I can only speak from my experience, is most of the brain teasers that I have to go through when I'm feeling stress inside my brain is I'm actually intellectually thinking about something too much rather than energetically thinking of my value. I'm thinking about, well, how can I do it, rather than why should I do it? I'm thinking about the process too much. And so when I'm having brain pain of debt, I'm thinking, oh, that's going to take so much work. It's going to take so much of all of these things. I'm not even thinking, my body's not thinking about it yet. I'm just like mentally exhausted by the thought of having to produce that much value. And that causes me more anxiety than just choosing. So usually in the brain, it's an intellectual thing, or you've heard from somebody that it's too difficult. You've heard from somebody that you're only worth $50,000 a year because you're working at this job and that's what you're worth. And you're stuck in that fixed income state. And so for you to pay off $80,000 worth of debt, you think, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? $80,000, that's 3 years of my life. If I didn't do anything else with my money, that's a lot of work. And so you're intellectually thinking about it rather than thinking, what is my soul worth? If I were to transfer my value that I'm currently giving this one person for $50,000, what if I were to give that same amount of value to a different part of the marketplace and open up my ability to transform my income simply because I use the same skills that God gave me in a different medium of transference of value, and then it's worth way more. So the multiple of value, dollar is a subjective term. It's a subjective number. It's controlled by people that are not you. You can't control the value of it. The one thing you can do is identify your identity, identify your value, and then go and ask for that value in the marketplace. And if you find somebody who's not willing to give you the value that you believe you're worth, then first do an honest introspection. Am I actually providing the value that I think I'm worth, right? Don't just go, I'm worth $1 million. No, but like ask, hey, is this value actually worth that? Or not? If it's not, then figure out how you can add more value. If you're like, no, I'm definitely sure that the value I'm offering is far more than what I'm being compensated for, then go find somebody who is willing to pay you the value that you're worth, that you're exchanging for the marketplace. So, but yeah, I would say brain is usually it's up here, and that's the way to get out of your brain. I mean, this was anything, right? If you're struggling with the energy of it, the way to get past the energy is probably to go to your brain and to logically think about what your emotions are feeling. And the vice versa is true. If you're stuck in your brain, I'm probably not going to ask you a lot of brain questions. I'm going to ask you about your gut. I'm going to ask you, hey, why do you think you're worth it? I'm going to go target a different part of your body to equalize it so you can be whole again. So any other questions or thoughts?
Thank you. Those are the ones in the chat, but I think there's a lot of like mind blow kinds of emojis that I'm seeing just because this is a really important conversation I think we don't always talk about. And so I thank you for being brave enough to stand out and say, hey, I love you, and let's move our perspective a little bit. If you do have any more questions, I'm going to put Samuel's contact in. It looks like you have some money books that you want to make available.
Yeah, and if you even just go directly to my website, samknickerbocker.com, then you can get so this one, you can get the ebook about how money works, change your literacy, change your life. But if you want the 9 pillars to build a meaningful legacy, you can get that on my website. You can also, hope this is okay, but I'm willing to do free one-on-one consultations with people. I really am more passionate about helping people than I am about making money. I know that sounds crazy, but like money comes after value is added if it's the right time. But people need to be helped regardless of whether there's a financial incentive. In my opinion, people need help. And so I'm happy to have a conversation with you or anybody you know. Maybe you're like, I don't need it, but I know somebody who could benefit from talking to Sam. Go on my website. It's on the contact page. You can schedule right into my calendar. I'd love to have a conversation with you.
Yeah. So much good. Thank you so much. Gratitude is the word for 2025. Mark, I'm going to embrace that with my whole being. Thank you so much for that. So much. Please help me thank Samuel for today. That was great. I appreciate it. I don't know. It's hard to say thank you, virtually, but know that we have a lot of gratitude going into the end of year in 2025 for you. Christine, did you have the winners?
So we're going to reinforce the people that are live with us, that are engaged, and thank you for all being here. And so we're excited. I love that we also have gifts that everyone gets, and we're in the process of putting all of that together, still in a one place, easy access, grab all the goodies kind of format. And so thank you for your patience. We are also in the process of getting YouTube videos uploaded and ready for your viewing. And so just keep staying connected and keep working with this momentum and energy. It's good stuff, because we have literally had full transformations happen just from the summit. And so it's exciting. And we want to hear if you've had that happen for you. We also want to hear from you in our Facebook group. And so all those good things.
Tomorrow. You're coming back tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be launching the conversation, Raise Your Frequency, Raise Your Life. We'll be getting into the mental body component. And so we have some great speakers who will be joining us again tomorrow. So I hope you will pop in again and just be present with us as we continue on this journey. And then make sure you're here on Friday, which is going to be a whole next level kind of day as well. So, any questions or things before we need to go? Otherwise, or if you want to stick around and you are curious more about the Love Solve Academy or Frequency School, I'll just be here for a few minutes and we can chat about that as well. Otherwise, have a fantastic night and we will look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I got to be part of the first Love Solve Academy, which was so amazing. And it actually transformed my life. If you close your eyes and you just imagine that roller coaster of life, what it looks like, what it feels like, it's exhausting, it's stressful, it's fast, it's moving quickly, and you feel like you're not holding on, and you just need to get off. This is your chance. The Love Solve Academy is 4 amazing gorgeous programs that Christine has developed over the last decade or so, and she's brought together in one place. Over the course of 4 months, we're going to love solve and level up, both in your life, in your relationships, in your business, in all the areas of your life. So, and it's not just for your business. This can be for your personal life, but sometimes they work hand in hand. So the Love Solve Academy really occurs over 4 phases, and the goal is really to help you move from the lower frequency that you may be experiencing in your life in one or more aspects. And so we're really going to build that foundation by going to frequency school, which I think is such a cool term and a great way for us to really start to understand where we're at, where we're stuck, where we need to get unblocked. And then we start moving up to 300, 200, 300. And then we move to phase 2, which is liberation, and really starting to release some of those negative emotions and those blocks so that we can begin to clear our minds in a way that allows us to meditate using the quantum wholeness meditation concept. And then we will get to the 0 point meridian, which, by the way, I'm just getting certified in that myself. And it is so powerful. It's so transformational. I've seen my client go from a 10 to a 4 in a matter of 30 minutes. So it's amazing. So phase 1, we're going to shift. We're going to move. We're going to raise your frequency in your 5 life areas and allow you to show up in a new, higher way for your clients, your employees, your family, and even yourself. We're going to actually dive into the Love Solve method. So you're going to notice new breakthroughs for solving the love in your life. And who here could use more love in your life? I think we all can. So the liberation model it's a transformational training that really gets to transforming our emotions in a way that allows us to release the old stuff and get to a place of neutrality so that we can start adding joy and love and peace and gratitude into our life on a regular basis. And just as Kathy was alluding to, we can all bring this into our relationships and enjoy a different level of relationship with our partners. This also includes private and group coaching sessions for the 0 Point Meridian with trained practitioners, which is super awesome. The third level, then the third phase, is to elevate your own perspective. And this is where we bring the Christian heart and the Eastern mind together. This is one of the first things that made me fall in love with Christine when she said this one sentence, because I've always known that there was some way that we could find that balance in a safe way. And this is it. So you're going to experience more clarity, a stress relief in your life. You're going to feel fulfillment. And honestly, you're going to get answers very quickly because your mind is at a stage where you can really be clear at a 500 frequency to get this information through quantum wholeness meditation.